This is KLLG LP 97.9, Willits, California. This is a special Town Hall Candidates Forum where the candidates for City Council and then candidates for supervisor positions are interviewed in a town hall setting at the Willits Community Center, October 4th, 2018. This program's about 40 minutes long. The evening's event has been broken into 3 program segments, which will air randomly during the noon and midnight hour.
All right, we're going to be moving on to audience questions now. So first, a thank you to the candidates. I know you guys are working under the wire here, and I do want to give you an opportunity to finish your sentences, but we have a lot of great audience questions. So really our goal here is trying to hit as many topics as possible, and that's why I'm kind of pushing you. So thank you for working with me here. So this is our first audience question, and John Haschek, you'll be the first to respond to this question. With around 6,000 residents, the Sherwood communities, including Brook Trails, are in a fire risk, one road in, one road out situation. Aside from the very long-term possibility of a second access boulevard district, as our 3rd district supervisor, what will you do after November to help secure short-term additional emergency evacuation routes? John?
Yes, good question. And you know, like I said before, I've been endorsed by every member of the Brook Trails board because they know that I'm going to be working on this as one of my top priorities. We need to have a short-term fix for emergency access, you know, in times of fire, and we need to have the long-term fix. I'm going to be working on both of those. I've been working with the Firewise Council up in Sherwood Road. Those people are doing incredible work and coming together as community and trying to figure out what's best. But we can also get the Resource Conservation District to be doing a lot of fire preparedness work too. It's a county agency that brings in $76 for every dollar they spend. If they get more money, they can do a lot more, and I think that we have a lot more work to do. I think that's money well spent because it's being spent back in our communities to make us safer.
Thank you. And John Pinchas, your opportunity to respond.
First of all, a better access out of Brook Trails is extremely important. Although right now there are other alternate, Brook Trails is not a one-way in, one-way out, as you stated. You can go out to the county road to the coast, or you can go out to county road to Laytonville. So, yes, you can. Well, I'm not gonna argue with you, but they're both county roads. Anyways, and the Brook Trails board, when I was in the board in the 90s, right after the Oakland Hills fire, the same issue come up, and the Brook Trails board put out the fire department put out a map of all the alternate accesses out of Brook Trails. And that was rescinded because too many of the residents up there complained about it because it allowed people to come in front of their house looking for these alternate routes. But it was a priority of mine. We got it down when I left the board. There was 2 routes they were studying. Under CEQA, you have to do this. One was a route to Highway 20. The other one is to go north, and this was before the Willits bypass build. And that's when I left the board. It seems like everything just stopped. It's a priority, but there are a lot of one-way in and one-way out roads in Mendocino County.
I'll pause you there,
like
John.
Pine Mountain.
You'll have an
Spy
opportunity to finish that thought in 1 minute,
Okay.
literally. John Haschek, go ahead.
Going back to the second access route out of Brook Trails, there was a study done, and Mr. Wagonette, who was on the board for a while, can vouch for this, that the viable routes were going down to 101. And that was the only way we were going to get funding from the state and feds, is to alleviate some of the traffic congestion in a normal day, which is bad enough on Sherwood Road. And so those routes were taking that into consideration. The route that Mr. Pinchas came up with going out Highway 20 was not a viable one because it didn't pencil out financially because we wouldn't get that funding from the states or the feds. And so it didn't work, and it just threw a monkey wrench into the whole plan of providing a second access route for Brook Trails and Sherwood Road. And so that's where I think we differ on this, and I appreciate the support I've gotten from the community members up there.
Thank you. And Pinchas, your opportunity.
John, what you said is just not true. First of all, under CEQA law, the California Environmental Quality Act, you've got to study every route. Otherwise, you're going to be liable for a lawsuit if they want to stop and say, well, you should have went this way because you didn't study that. The object was to study every route. Remember there was meetings in this room here when they studied the Willits bypass. I think they started out, there was 18 or 20 different routes they had to study. So the Highway 20 route was studied, and the one going north was studied. Seems like most of the people support up there. There's two issues. There's fire safety and traffic circulation. Both have to be taken into consideration. The fact of the matter is there was no funding at the time to do it, just to do some of the small in-county studies. But to get really serious about it, somebody's going to have to put up some real money. And I don't know if it's going to be state, because it doesn't connect to state highways, so I don't know how there's not very many pots of state funding that will be available. Maybe you can get lucky and get a federal grant, although the new federal infrastructure bill hasn't even been proposed yet. But
That's
it's a very
time there,
long
John.
process. Another option is to do the benefit assessment or boulevard district, what they call it, which is only
John,
the people of Brook
I
Trails.
want to let you finish your sentence, but
Okay.
I'm going to have to cut you off at new sentences, just to be fair.
There's a lot to that issue.
It does seem like there's a lot to that issue. Do you have interest, hashtag, in taking another rebuttal there, or would you like to move on to the next question? No pressure.
I can go
I know, I realized it was kind of mean to ask you that question, but it's your choice.
whatever you want to do.
All right, the audience says move on. I told you I wanted a game show atmosphere. Everyone shout
Okay.
what you want to happen. Move on. Okay, great. That's the kind of forum I'm talking about. I've been waiting for that on the right. All right, we're moving on to the next question. So, this...
Additional access routes for $50. No, just kidding.
Good, I like that. Next opportunity for a forum will be playing in Jeopardy style. All right, this next question, you'll be the first to answer, John Pinches. The question is, Mendocino County, this is a long question, by the way, just so that you know what's coming. Mendocino County is a party to meetings in regards to the purchase of the Potter Valley project, Lake Pillsbury and the Eel River diversion into the Russian River. The outcome has environmental, economic, and safety implications for the whole county. Do you think these meetings should be open to the public? How would you include the public in these discussions? And what are your thoughts on how we can reconcile the competing interests? John Pinches, you'll be the first to respond.
First of all, I believe all of the meetings are open to the public. I noticed on the TV that the Mendocino County Water Agency is meeting here the second week in October, next week. Anyways, the Inland Water and Power Company, which is part of the county, the Russian River Flood District, those are all public meetings, and I encourage the people to get involved in that. One thing that I've said about the Potter Valley project, it is a hydroelectric project, but the main benefit to Mendocino County is the water, and that is, I'm adamant about this, that is Mendocino County's water. That water has been going through the tunnel since 1906. It's been before there was Lake Mendocino built, where Sonoma County got involved. That was in the 50s. There was about 50-year period there that it was only for the Ben of Mendocino County. We have established a pre-1914 water right on that water, and no matter who buys the project, if Mendocino County and its group of agencies can't come up with the money or whether they want, and it's still Mendocino County's water. PG&E don't own that water. They were using that water
That's
right.
time, John.
But it's Mendocino County's water, and I'm going to tell Sonoma
John.
County that and everybody.
Thank you, John. And John Haschek.
Certainly, these kind of meetings should be open to the public, and the Potter Valley Water Project is, it's a vital thing where the water is coming out of Mendocino and Lake counties, and it's flowing through this diversion into the Russian River basin, part of it, and part of it's going into the Eel River. And so since 1906, it's been a vital part of economic growth throughout Mendocino County and then on through Sonoma County. So when Mr. Pinches tried to bring up this water issue when he was on the board, he didn't even get a second from the board. They wouldn't even discuss it because he wanted to go on this kind of a tangent, and people didn't want to waste their time. We don't have time to waste. We've got issues we need to solve, and we need to, we just don't have time to waste on these kind of things that are non-starters.
Thank you, John, and your turn to respond, Pinches.
John, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying, when Sonoma County takes 87% of our water and sells it to Marin County, North Marin Water District, that we don't have time to look at that issue when we're on water cutbacks and everything? Redwood Valley, which gets all of their water out of Lake Mendocino, they had severe cutbacks, but Sonoma County was selling that water to the North Marin Water District. And now you're telling me we don't have time to worry about that issue? We need to move on? That is our basis for most of our water in inland Mendocino County, all the way from Potter Valley to where it leaves Mendocino County at the south end. Probably benefits over half of the population of Mendocino County, and you're saying you don't have time to look into that issue?
John, your opportunity to respond.
I'm saying when you brought it up to the board, even the people who represent the farming interest of Mendocino County and the rest of the board said they didn't want to waste any of our county resources because they knew it was a non-starter, that it was going nowhere. We need water, and we need to be careful with our water. We need to be environmentally sensitive with how we use our water, and we need to be doing water conservation in our farming in Mendocino County. We need to be looking at ponds, we need to be looking at catchments, we need to be looking at all those things that can save water and use the water most effectively. But I agree with what the other board members said. This is state law with the water rights, and why waste your time on something like that?
Can I rebut that?
Yeah, yes, go ahead, 1 minute.
First of all, water rights can be changed. As far as spending a lot of money, all my motion proposed was that I was going to go down to get the permission from my colleagues to go down to Sonoma County and talk to the Sonoma County Water Agency about the agreement, how they were getting 87% of the water out of Lake Mendocino to sell a big portion of it to the North Marin Water District. All I want to do is talk. I was going on my gasoline. There was no cost to the county. I couldn't get any support because, frankly, a lot of the water interests in Mendocino County, they like it just the way things are. For instance, Potter Valley, they pay $4 an acre feet for their water. I think that could be adjusted. But we're getting nothing to taxpayers. And that is a huge benefit. You know, folks, I live on a ranch, and when you're out of water, you're out of everything. It's severely important. This could be the largest issue coming up in 100 years, maybe longer than that. And for my colleague or my opponent here to sit here and say that he don't have time to look into that issue is not acceptable to me.
Thank you, John. And you have an opportunity to respond as well. Haschak.
Yeah, the price of water in Potter Valley is irrelevant to this question. But I wasn't on the board when he couldn't get any support for this plan. And nothing has changed on the board. And so he won't get any, if he were elected, he wouldn't get any support. So we need to move forward. We need to be forward thinking, and we need to figure out how we can use the water that we have and look at conservation, look at what's best for our environment, look at what's best for the water flows and the fish and everything else that we depend on in the both basins, you know, the Eel River and the Russian River, and going back and trying to redo state water law is it's not happening.
Thank you, candidates. We'll be moving on to the next question.
Can I rebut that again? No?
No. See, I told you it's a game show atmosphere, John. The audience says no. Sorry. All right. John Hashek, you'll be the first to respond to this question. It is regarding mental health. PUF unit was closed. Workers were cut. Management remains. How would you redevelop mental health? Would you use Old Howard Hospital building for patient stabilization?
Let me say, I don't think Howard Hospital is on the table right now as an issue. And so I was a person out there precinct walking for Measure B because I thought that that was the right direction we needed to do. We needed to get that tax in place so that we could create this PUF unit and it would economically benefit the county. I just went to the Measure B meeting the other day, and now they're talking about using that money that we're getting, which is over $500,000 a month in tax revenue, and putting it towards crisis stabilization units, crisis intervention, residential treatment, and we're getting away from the intent of that money to create this PUF unit. And so I think that we need to kind of look at the big picture again, maybe take it back with town hall meetings or something, and see what the people want to do with that. Because I think we've gotten away, we've almost done a bait and switch with people. This is what we're doing, now this is what we're doing. So.
Thank you. John, go ahead.
Yeah, well, first of all, the voters passed for the funding to build facilities for mental health. We have, through two sources of revenue coming in for our mental health services, over $30 million that comes in to supply services all the way from the North County to the South County. And I don't want to see those services cut in order to build more buildings. I've heard the Kemper reports talking about different facilities on the coast and whatnot. Basically, they put the cart in front of the horse by getting the funding first and then finding out what they need now. So it's kind of a push-pull to where you put it. I know one thing, before I was on the board in 1993, they had just recently done away with the PUF unit in Ukiah. The reason they done away with it was for two reasons. One, they didn't have hardly any patients, and number two is they didn't have the staff that the staff like doctors and whatnot to tend to take care of severely mentally ill patients. So they closed it because they just didn't have a lot of need, and then they sent the patients to out of county, which was a lot cheaper than a thing. I'm not sure things have really changed that.
Thank you, John. That's time there. You'll have another minute on this issue, John Pinches. John Hashek, your opportunity.
So this Kemper report, which was commissioned by the county to look at the mental health services and the curriculum of service, or the range of services that we're providing, and see where the gaps are, I think a couple recommendations from them really need to be followed, which one was increase crisis intervention teams, which will go out to people in the 3rd District and deal with them in their homes and try to keep them away from having to be hospitalized. I think that's a positive thing, intervention. And also the other is the family resource centers and boosting the amount of money that they get, because they're doing really good work in the communities of our county, and they're keeping people, on task of going to their appointments, making sure they're taking their medicine, doing those things that keep people out of the hospitals. So if we can do some of those preventative measures, I think that's a good step. I just don't know if that's what Measure B money should be used for.
Thank you, John. And John Pinches, your final opportunity.
It's real clear. Measure B money is supposed to be for the facilities. I don't disagree that we need more maybe crisis intervention people out there in the county. That's putting the services out there in the county. I'm all for that. But the Measure B was passed just to build facilities, and so now they're talking about, well, maybe we need a smaller facility here, one on the coast, one in Ukiah. They're talking about increasing the facility that Redwood Children's Services or Redwood Quality Management takes now, which is a large contractor for our mental health services in the center of Ukiah. So that's kind of all up in the air. One thing that I did get out of the Kemper report the other day is typical of consultants. The next thing they need is more money, so to study it further. But everybody seems to have an opinion of where you want these. But keep in mind, Measure B was money for facilities only, not for the operation of our mental services. And I don't want to see, I think we have a pretty good job of filling our mental health needs throughout the county. I'm not saying it's the best, but for the money we spend, over $30 million, and I don't want to see those services retracted just to put more paint on a fancier building. That's what I'm concerned about.
Thank you, John. All right, we're moving on to the next question. 2 more questions here, folks, and then we'll have closing statements for both of the candidates. The next question is, I am concerned about the consolidation of power by the current CEO model of county administration. Is this a concern for you? And how would you address this if you are elected? John Pinchas?
Well, I've served under both models, I've stated before, in the CEO model and the CAO model. Frankly, there's very little difference that I can see. What the problem is here is the supervisors are stepping back and letting the CEO run everything. And the board of supervisors should be the bosses. They're the 5 people that you people in Mendocino County elect. You spend a lot of effort in trying to pick the best candidates. They are the people that should be running the county and making decisions, not our CEO or not anybody underneath him or her. It's just that simple. The board needs to step up and be the boss on all these issues instead of deferring everything to the CEO's office. And that's just how it works.
Thank you, John. And John Haschak.
Yeah, I agree with that our system's set up that, the supervisors are supposed to be there setting the policy, and the other people are supposed to be implementing that policy. When that doesn't happen, things have to change. I think one of the key issues is, where is that policy being set? And we're seeing time after time that the supervisors or the CEO are not listening to what the will of the people is. We got the Grist Creek asphalt plant, where all of a sudden, the people weren't listened to. This was pushed through without the appropriate environmental reviews, and the county got sued, lost for $240,000. We got Measure V, which is the hack and squirt, which we talked about, not being implemented. We have the Cultural Services Agency, which the library advisory boards, everyone says it's a bad idea, and they pushed it through. And so who's listening to whom?
Thank you, John. And John Pinchas, would you like to expand?
Well, first of all, he referred to the Grist Creek asphalt plant. There is no Grist Creek asphalt plant. It's where they haul river run from the river, the overrun the river, and process it there. There wasn't temporary asphalt plant there to pave our roads from Laytonville to Leggett down here to Willits. Without a temporary facility there, if they ever brought it back in, there's only one plant in the Ukiah Valley to service all of Mendocino County and further. And number one, if you only have one plant, you get no good competitive bids, so you end up paying up to maybe a third more to pave your roads. And everybody loves our paved roads. Maybe we need more of them. Maybe we need them to be patched. But that's fact of life. Maybe nobody likes oil mixed with gravel, but it's a fact of life. Pavement's a very popular thing in business parking lots and in our roads. And so, yes, that piece of property is zoned industrial. They were completely within their zoning requirements. They maybe, I guess they put out, because the state required them to put rubber as part of their asphalt. So when they done that made the bad air quality when they mixed it. I can't blame that all on the operator. It was a requirement of the state that made it happen in the first place.
Thank you, John Pinchas. Thank you for your response. And John Haschak, you have an opportunity to respond here as well.
Well, I think it's a question of where we go in this county as far as how do we listen to people? How do we get citizen involvement? And I am looking forward to a new approach. I've spent the last year going out and meeting with people, all communities, all ethnic groups, everyone I could talk to. I've been out there talking to people. I've had a great time doing it, and I think that that's the kind of participatory democracy that I'm going to do when I'm elected, because that's what the people in the 3rd District deserve. They deserve a representative, a supervisor who's going to be out there talking to them, getting out and seeing what the issues are and reaching out to all communities. And I look forward to that.
Thank you. And moving on to our final question of the evening, I want to thank the audience for some great questions. I know our team had a difficult time eliminating, so I hope that we've captured most of what you hope to hear about this evening. Our final question is in regards to cannabis, and John Hashchak, you'll be the first responding to this question. What are your concerns about the county's handling of the cannabis regulation, if any? What changes would you propose in the ordinance or in the implementation of the ordinance? What is your vision for cannabis in the 3rd District?
Big question, and I'll tell you what, it won't fit on a bar napkin. Okay, we have cannabis in this county, and it's got a worldwide reputation. The appellation is held in the very highest esteem throughout the world. So that's a strength of our county, and we need to promote that. We need to, get the canna tourism going. We need to help people, the small heritage farmers, survive. We don't want to go corporate on this. We don't want big grows coming into our county, but we do need to make those mom and pop survive. I've got a platform that you can get it at my table, or you can see it on my website, and it lays out exactly the 12 points that we're going to do to streamline and make it so people have a viable, dignified way of making a living.
Pinches.
First of all, last year, not this budget year we're in now, but last year, the county of Mendocino lost approximately $2.8 million in its cannabis program. This year, it's hard to tell how much money I just got a copy of this new budget. It was just printed last week. And it's hard to tell how much they are going to lose. They're admitting this year they're going to lose money. But it's hard to tell how much because they got so many of the positions hid in other departments like the Ag Department and Building and Planning, so it's really hard to extrapolate how much you can attribute to it. But the point of it is they're still going to lose money on the whole program. That makes you bring to the point of, do we even need it? If the county's going to lose money, I thought the whole idea for having a program was to make some money so people could fix the roads and other things with it. But if we're just going to continue to lose millions of dollars, why do we even need the program? Just say, okay, whatever. If the feds come in or the state comes in, but why do we need to spend our hard-earned taxpayers' money on a cannabis program? But
That's time, John.
In short, I would really streamline. If I'm going to vote for any process, it's going to be very streamlined.
And John Hashchak, an opportunity.
Yeah, I've heard this line from Mr. Pinches in the last few debates about whatever, just let everyone do what they want to do because it's the legal entity. I don't think that's where we are as a county. I don't think that's what will be in our best interest as a county. We don't want corporations and all those doing massive grows in our communities. I'm not there. And I do think with the 12 points that I've talked to cannabis growers and seen what they want, and I think that we can work it to make it so it is viable for them, but also within the communities that we want. I think that we also need to look at public banking as an issue that will make our communities safer, where we get the large amounts of cash out of people's homes. I think we need to look at co-ops so that they can collaborate and making it economically viable. And the last thing, they need to have direct sales. And so with those three things, I think that we can make it work for people.
Thank you, John. And John Pinches, a final opportunity.
Yeah,
here.
What I have said is, cannabis is legal now, whether you like it or not. If you put 10 pear trees in your backyard, nobody's going to say much. If you put 10 grapevines in your backyard, nobody's going to say much. I think it should be the same for marijuana. Now, if you want to get huge, then you got to go through the use permit process, just like if you're going to put certain things, even in commercial or industrial zoning. You still got to go through either minor use permits or major use permits, and they're conditionally. So it's not one size that fits all. So the community can come in and comment on what they think. So there's certainly ways to keep out quote these big corporations from coming in, which I don't think is a reality. I think the heart of cannabis growing in Mendocino County, the future, is going to be to make our small growers survive so they can keep a roof over their head and feed their families. And that's what I will support.
Thank you, John.
Can we go another round on that?
Certainly. Let's do one more. 1 minute more each.
Oh. Well, there's also a big difference between our approaches is that we have these working groups in our county that are trying to make the ordinance work for the small grower. And these working groups have been working for a long time, and they're working on different aspects of the ordinance. I've been endorsed by lots of people who are working on those working groups, and I've been endorsed by the Covelo Cannabis Advocacy Group, Ron Edwards, Tim Blake up in Laytonville, who's the Emerald Cup person. You know, I've been endorsed by these people because they know that it's hard work, that complying with the state regulations and also making it work for Mendocino County is what's important, not just letting this laissez-faire deal go through, but they recognize that, and that's why they're endorsing me.
Thank you. And a final response from John Pinches.
Well, and I said I actually do have a copy of my marijuana ordinance on the back of a bar napkin. It's real easy to do because all I said was keep the very minimal cost for the small growers, and if you want to get it medium sized or large, then you got to go through the use permit process, just like you have to do to put any other type of business in Mendocino County. You know, let's put everybody on the same playing field. That's all I'm about, fairness. Whether it's cannabis, growing pears or grapes or whatever. I want to, as far as rules about extraction of water, grading of land and whatnot, we already have those rules and laws on the books. I mean, they're state and federal and local laws, the grading ordinance and the state grading ordinance, the extraction of water from illegal sources. That's already dealt with. Why do we need to duplicate all that? But we've done, the last 2 years, we've probably spent over $4 or $5 million between last year and this fiscal year we're in getting nothing for it. Nobody's happy.
And that's
so
time.
Back up. But there you go again. It's kind of like the horse has already left the barn. The ordinance is in place. It's going to take a lot to fully change it.
That's time, John. I'm going to cut you off there.
Yeah.
We will have an opportunity for closing statements now. So we'll hear 2 minutes from each of our two candidates, and that will wrap up. I apologize for going a bit over here. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for your engagement this evening. For closing statements, John Hashtek, you'll start us off, and John Pinches, you'll finish us up.
All right. Thank you all for coming out tonight. It's a great exercise in democracy. That's why I got into this, because I think that in this time and this day and age, we all need to be more civically engaged. So please vote on November 6th. There's 3 critical issues in our county, 3 areas of critical issues: the economy in transition, disaster preparedness, and the way we're governed. Okay. As far as the economy in transition, you know, I appreciate what Larry said about the Great Redwood Trail. You know, that's a great opportunity for us, you know, to make Willits a focal point for something. And this will bring in tourism. And I totally appreciate the endorsement of Senator Mike McGuire and Assemblyman Jim Wood and our Congressman Jared Huffman, because they know that I'll be working with them on these issues, and it's going to require state and federal collaboration. We also need career and technical education. We need broadband. We need those issues. And we're going to need someone who can be a liaison and work with those entities. We need disaster preparedness. You know, that's why I'm so proud that I've been endorsed by everyone on the Brook Trails board, because Sherwood Road, Brook Trails, it's critical that we get that done. And we also have other areas of the county where we can really work on fire preparedness. Jim Wood and I have talked about it repeatedly, and I'm ready to work with the state in making it happen. And as far as the county governance goes, I'm not taking that raise because we need a new way of governing in this county. We cannot go back to the same old and take the big raises while the workers are not getting it. We can't do that, Mr. Pinches, and I ask for your vote for John Haschak because we need to change the way things are going.
Thank you, John. And John Pinches, your
My
closing
opponent
remarks.
says he won't take the raise, but he had no problem taking $25,000 from the SEI union, which represents about 800 county employees. You know, I mean, it's not just being union strong. At that point, that's a special interest. How can he negotiate for the taxpayers of Mendocino County? In all fairness to all the other bargaining groups that are not SEIU members, only about half of the county employees are SEIU members. So I bring that out because that's just a fact. My campaign has never taken more than $49 from any business, individual, corporation. We've spent a total of, I got it right here, about $5,800 on our campaign. We didn't have to buy signs because they're old signs. But anyways, I'm going to say one thing. The first thing I want to do for Mendocino County 3rd District people, not just voters, but non-voters too, because I got to represent you the same way. Kids 15 years old to 105 is to represent you. And I'll be a strong representative for the people of the 3rd District down in Ukiah, because that's where things happen that affect this area. We've seen what's happened with not very good representation for the last 4 years. Things really went sideways, whether it's our road in Laytonville. We don't even have an open road yard anymore. It's crazy, you know, and our roads are getting kind of bad, and there's more money going in the road department than there ever was, and we're not getting nothing up here in the 3rd District. Those are the things that I'm going to bring back to the 3rd District. And the infrastructure is big. The second access going up to Brook Trails, I'll work on that. It's going to be a tough one because it's a very expensive and a very long process going through the CEQA process and studying all the routes. It's not a simple fix. We'll work on that, but there's a lot of issues, and probably the main issues of the day will change in the 2 or 3 years. Things continually change. But on my worst day, I'll be your best supervisor.
Thank you, John Pinches. All right, folks, first and foremost, let's hear a round of applause for yourselves for being here and committed to engagement tonight. This is, just like John said, this is what democracy looks like. So thank you for hanging in there. And a big thank you to all of our candidates tonight: John Pinches, John Haschak, Greta, Connie, Jeremy Hirschman, Larry Stransky. Thank you, all of you, for being here and being willing to be our public servants.